It's already October, and we are going to be sharing with you today some collaboration work that has come out of the assessment team and the district assessment team, and some work that we've been doing together, and we're excited to share it with you. So I have Micah Becker here with me today, and we're going to be sharing what we've been working on the last couple months. And so we'll just dive right in. So this project came out of a need that we were hearing from the field. And the major concerns were that students were being subjected to too many tests, not just summatively, but with district assessments as well, that the assessment data was not being used for its intended purpose, and that there was some discrepancies between the district assessment system and the statewide assessment system. And so when we heard this feedback, we decided that to put our heads together and see what we could do to help remedy this issue. So our response was to come up with a tool that allows districts to review the assessments that they are giving within individual schools and districts as a whole. So what we did is really provide a framework for districts to use this dynamic tool to continuously review their assessments so that they can remain efficient and effective. And that ensures that assessments are accurately measuring students' mastery of Wyoming standards without over-testing. So we came up with a protocol, and the intention was for it to help districts analyze their current assessment systems to find efficiencies and reduce student and educator burden, and to improve data for impactful changes. So what we're going to talk about today is the overview of our system, the assessment inventory template, the facilitation guides that we've come up with, some handouts, and slide deck. And that is the components that we have developed so far that are available for districts to use. So we came up with some various stages. We're going to talk to you about the stages that we have developed so far, and then some stages that we're in the process of developing as well. So the first stage is the theory of action, and this is the stage where the vision is created for that balanced, that ideal balanced assessment system. And it involves discussions around district goals or school goals, objectives, and the assessment culture within a district, building, and in individual classrooms. And this is where we begin with the end in mind as we work through these other stages. So the WDE has created some resources. We call it the DAS Create tool. And it's a tool to help gather key ideas, thoughts, visions, objectives, goals of the district assessment as a whole. And we also have linked in the slide deck the district assessment guidebook. The next stage is the assessment inventory. And this stage is a foundational step for a balanced and effective assessment system. It involves creating a comprehensive catalog of all formal and informal, formative and summative assessments that are used within a district. And the goal is to identify redundancies, gaps in measuring student mastery of standards, and ineffective assessments. And so WDE provides some resources to help guide you through this assessment inventory, particularly a spreadsheet template. And we're going to show you that just here in a second. Mike is going to walk you through how to utilize that. And this is just really a tool to help you gather all the information about the assessments that you're using. There's a facilitation guide and a slide deck, and those are customizable to you, the slide deck and the handouts. This is really just a template for you to take and then adapt to however it fits best within your buildings. There's an individual thinking handout for you to use during meetings, and an individual assessment creation / review. This is a guide for reviewing or creating new assessments. Stage 2 is a data review protocol. This stage is where you look at the data from the assessments that you have identified. And the goal here is for continuous improvement, of course. So you're going to analyze information from the assessments inventory to identify trends, learning gaps, and effectiveness of instructional strategies. This is going to allow educators to move from administering tests to understanding what students need and making data-informed decisions. So again, for this, we have that spreadsheet template. There's a facilitation guide. And at this point, we break it down into state, district, building, and PLC levels to guide conversations. So we know there's different questions that need to be asked and discussions that need to be held at those various levels. And so we've created a guide that will help you facilitate those discussions. Again, there's a slide deck that's customizable to your building and some more handouts for you to use during those individual meetings. The third stage is the planning for the future stage. And this is where you're strategically planning for the future of your assessment system within your district or building. It involves analyzing emerging trends and innovative approaches to ensure the system remains relevant and responsive to the evolving needs of your students. The goal is to proactively strengthen the system to prepare students for the 21st century. So again, we provide you a facilitation guide and a slide deck, some handouts for you to facilitate those discussions within your teams at the various levels, and then that individual assessment creation or review to help you either create new assessments and to always have that forward-thinking approach. So before we dive into the first stage that Mike is going to guide you through, we wanted to review a little bit on how state assessment data should be used. And this handout is available to you. There's a link here, but it's also available to you on the WDE website. And it really breaks down what is the appropriate use for state assessment data. And I'm going to dive a little bit deeper into that into the next slide. So we broke this down by 5 levels. And so there's the state, the district, building, teacher and classroom, and then student and parents. And we really wanted to kind of break it down to a simplified version of how the state data should be used at those various levels. And so the reason that we did this is because when we get into having those conversations about the assessments that we are utilizing or you are utilizing in a district and the data that comes from them, we have to look at where that data is applicable and what level it should be used at. And so when we look at assessment data for our state summative tests, we really are focusing at that state and district level. And so the uses for that at the state level are for validity and reliability, and we know those are used for accountability and school support systems. An inappropriate use of that would be informing teacher evaluation, as a measure of schools' quality, and also to inform direct instructional changes. At the district level, we're looking at curriculum gaps, standards alignment, assessment policies, and professional development. Inappropriate uses of that would be diagnosing content-specific skills gaps for reteaching at the student level or supporting individual teacher evaluation. Then we get down into the building level, and this is really where, if you're using your state summative data, you're looking for growth and intervention systems, instructional schedules, and team collaborations around that. So you're really looking to evaluate the effectiveness of growth and intervention programs, and you're using that aggregate data to inform instructional schedules and team collaborations. Again, the misuse of that data or inappropriate use would be to inform instructional decisions at the student level. At the teacher level, differentiation, feedback, PLDs, daily instructional decisions, it's not appropriate for the use at the teacher and classroom level. And so any use for that would be an inappropriate use. And at the student and parent level, this is really where we're being transparent and could be used for some goal setting, long-term goals, really for parents to understand the student's progress in a broader context, and long-term academic goals. So then we look at different types of assessments that you would be utilizing within your district or building. And we identified 4 types: formative, benchmark, modular, and interim. And of course, our YTOP assessment system has interim modular assessments available for your use. And districts often have a benchmark or a formative assessment that they're using. And we broke down how that data should be used at the district, building, and teacher levels, and then misuses again for that. And so we really see, I want to focus on the modular and interim data here, since we're kind of approaching this from a state perspective today, that at the district level, with utilizing modulars, you can align assessments to standards and refine your pacing guides. The building level, you could identify gaps in specific units and support reteaching plans. And at the teacher level, you can adapt next unit, reteach essentials for your small groups. Interim assessment data at the district level can be predictive of summative performance. It could be used to allocate resources, evaluate system improvement. The building level, you could use that interim data to inform interventions for groups and adjust support schedules. And at the teacher level, you could review general trends, but it's not really intended to be used to impact individual instruction. So the theory of action part is where Mike is going to take over today and really get into that, developing that vision at the first stages of this process. So I'll turn it over to you, Micah.
Thanks, Elle. And it is so great to see everybody. And we really are excited about this collaboration. And it's good to see all these names that I recognize, and glad to be a part of this and being able to partner with you guys, with the assessment team and with all of you on here with us today, to really dive into how we can support you here with your in-depth analysis of your district assessment system, for the theory of action discussion specifically, and creating that vision. I've just completed a bunch of work on this to really have those guided questions that Elle was talking about, and really walking through the steps of how to create a theory of action specifically around your district assessment system. And it's so powerful, I think, to pull in your multidisciplinary teams and really get into what do you want your assessment system to do. You know your statutes, you know the guidebook. That's where you can start, and looking at the requirements for accreditation and through chapter rules and all of those things, but really then getting into the nitty gritty, making sure that the assessment system is meeting those statutes and those requirements, and then getting into what are the goals and objectives of your district assessment? What do you want it to do? What does it need to do for you, for your district, for your school buildings, and then all the way down to that instructional level for the classroom? And how can these assessments be instructionally useful? You'll be able to come up with activities and actions to make sure that you complete. You can give roles to each of those individual members so that this really can be a team idea, team theory, and that way you can get that commitment from all the way from the top to the bottom. There are new resources in the public folder that we can share with you as well. And if you're interested in any of these, we have access to all of these that you can make your own copies, like Elle said, and really tweak it to what your district's needs are. again, focusing on those beliefs and expectations of what assessment is supposed to do, taking into account all of the different levels of those assessments. We know the necessariness of those state assessments, of those interims, and then really focusing in too on how do those play in to the system as a whole, as required by statute. And all of that, again, is mentioned in the DAS guidebook. We have gone ahead and added a like there for that one specifically, there's a great outline of how to, like, the questions to ask, how to get there, and then at the end really making that statement of if this, then this, and what we want that then to be, and making sure that it all aligns so that by the end of going through this, if this is where you are as a district, you will truly have that vision statement complete at the end of that. And I will make sure that we get all of you those access to those folders. On the next slide here, it talks about just the statutes that will need to align to the to your district assessment system, which you can find all within the uh, guidance book that is attached to that slide previously. One of my favorite things is going back to the chart that Elle shared about how to use the proper uses of the assessments at the different levels. As you move forward, thinking about the decision-making framework for each assessment that you are giving. So again, taking a look at those charts from previously on the slides to how are we using the state level? How are we using that district level? What building assessments do we have and how are we using those all the way down? And one of the best things about kind of this this graphic that we'll show you on this next slide is really even diving down into the student and parent level. And it shows how far away, and I think this is so valuable with that over testing and trying to make so many decisions based on a single snapshot, how far away from the instructional task from those students and parents that the state assessment is. So there's your policies and structures, your beliefs, assumptions, and habits, what kind of PD you might need for learning, for growth with your teachers, and then all the way down to that core that we want to try to reach with the district assessment system. So that covers what the theory of action will be doing. What the next stage is the assessment inventory, and I'm going to have Elle hop you guys onto the spreadsheet template so that you can see exactly what we have set up for you and how individualized you can make it for your districts. And we're willing to partner with you on any of these stages, all of these stages, but also the system and the protocol is built for you to individualize it, for you to use it for the needs of your districts, as well as adjusting it to your teachers' needs as well. So this assessment inventory spreadsheet, it comes with the very first tab of being instructions, how we kind of created it, how things will autofill, and then all of the different tabs at the bottom here. And you can see in tab 1 is the identifying stage. And this is where your teachers will ask, you know, what assessments do we give? What other projects might we be giving that are addressing certain standards? And then you can kind of start to talk about, are we over or under assessing different things? Do the assessments alive to both our accreditation needs, our accountability needs, and our student needs? And here you're just gathering that basic information about the tests and organization that you administer throughout the year. So this is a really, really valuable tool of a piece that you really can start to look at all of the assessments that you give throughout the year. And then really starting to look at the assessment, the grades, the content, the month that you get those data, all of those different pieces. On tab 2, and you will be able to see that once you fill in those assessments, that they start to autofill into the document in the gray sections there in column A, B, and C. So you only need to do this once. This template we're using is just like, we just wanted to show you like the overview and possibly some other ideas for assessments that you can use and put in here. What we have listed here are some of the state assessments that are offered through us. And then also I got to work with the CTE team and talk about some of those credentials that the kiddos take and what those might look like through this system as well. So really running all your assessments through this can really open up like, what are we testing and how and all of those things. So on that second tab, you're going to start looking at the assessment type. So in those, what assessments do you give? Are you gathering that basic information about the organization? What time of year is it? And then we can start to look at, are the standards appropriately addressed? Are the assessments rigorous? What standards do we need are needing to be taught and assessed? Especially looking at that reduced set of standards that has come out, making sure that all of those things still align, knowing that you're still going to need to instruct on those back pieces, but what is required in the DAS to assess and to make sure that we assess multiple opportunities. And then making sure that we know where are those assessments fall with PLDs, and then beginning to gather the data of the assessment types, the item types specifically, the level of rigor and cognitive complexity of both instruction and assessment at the end, and specifically those standards. On tab 3, this is the data. We're not into actually analyzing that data as of yet. Right now, we're just trying to identify what data we are gathering. So what does this test tell us about our students, and what information is it giving us to that extent? During this step, you will list the data provided by the assessment and where it can be found, so you know where it's housed. This would be great information for a new teacher or someone stepping into a different team specifically. Where is this data? Who is in charge of disseminating it and doing those things? What's the intended use of that data? And how are we currently using it? Who is using it? And then starting to look at, is this holistic of the student? Is there trust and transparency in the data we're giving? Does it all line up? So here you're going to actually be gathering cut scores, proficiency levels for each target, the number or percentage of meeting, not meeting the target. So again, it's that really broad overview. We're not into the individual student data yet, but really looking at, is this assessment doing what we would like it to do? That leads us into tab 4, where we do start those reflections. How are we utilizing this data to improve student learning? Is it appropriate to use that data for student learning, or do we need to use it for a different purpose? And then you'll finally reflect on the assessments you use and the data provided to determine how they impact teaching and learning specifically. Are educators using the data to inform instruction? Are the students involved in setting goals? So all of those best practices that we know that assessments can give us, and not really, oh, we have to give this test to give this test. And then finally, for that big district overview on tab 5, this is where all of the information fills from those previous tabs. So you can see this can easily be broken down into various PLC times that you get together and work on it piece by piece. But then there is this overall information, and you can start synthesizing your information and whether it is truly working, if there are things missing, and then where to go next. So that is the assessment inventory piece. As I said, stage 0, there are some guiding documents in the public folder to really focus in on that. And then all of these assessment pieces for this assessment inventory, as far as discussion topics, worksheets, individual information gathering, discussion topics, and all of the facilitation guides that Elle mentioned during her slideshow presentation part are all in that public folder. And then moving into stages 2 and 3, Elle, I don't know if we want to go back to the slideshow specifically at this point, but we're really wrapping up here. Stages 2 and 3 are still a work in progress, and we're really excited to be partnering with some districts. If you're interested in partnering with us, please just reach out and we can kind of send everything to you in one nice little bundle as we continue to pilot this program and make our way through what districts really need and are looking for and all of those things. So stages 2 and 3, that data analysis and then that future planning stages are still in the works and will be available in that public folder in the near future. And I'm sure we will, as we continue to pilot it with districts, get that information out to you guys as well. So I think that's it for the overview. If there are any questions, we would love to answer those at this time. And I will practice my wait time and see if you guys have any questions or need anything from us.
I'm actually going to interrupt your wait time. Since this is the first day that we've been able to do something for DAS since we made our announcement for our new vendor, one of the things that we're finding really helpful in some of these conversations is that the majority of districts are ready to start that assessment inventory piece, which is really nice timing, knowing that our system will change vendors. The YTOP system will change vendors starting next year. So getting your assessment inventory in place and understanding what your systems already have in them is a really great place to be at when in the spring we roll out what the new offerings are going to be for that system, so that you can make informed decisions about which pieces are going to best fit your system and which pieces do not need to be added, so that you don't exacerbate the redundancy of assessment.
So we'll just open it to any questions that you may have regarding this protocol and the templates. Additionally, if you have other assessment related questions, we're happy to take those at this time as well. And if there aren't any questions, we appreciate you being with us today, and feel free to hop off at any time. And we will be having our office hours. Michelle, can you help me with when our next office hours are?
So it's the third Wednesday at 9 o'clock, and that will be on October. Oh no, office hours. The first Wednesday, and that will be on November 5th. Sorry, at 9 o'clock. I got them switched.
Thank you.
Thank you.